It was one of those rainy afternoons in Manhattan, the kind where people kept their heads down, umbrellas up, and hearts closed. Everyone was rushing past each other, drenched in their own thoughts. But among the blur of designer coats and tailored suits, there she was. A small girl, barely 15, sat on the sidewalk with her back against a brick wall. Her hoodie was soaked through. Her jeans clung to her legs, wet and cold. A faded backpack was clutched to her chest like it was the last thing she owned, because it was. Her name was Lena. She hadn't eaten in almost 2 days. The few people who noticed her offered nothing more than a glance. Some tightened their grip on their handbags. Others simply walked faster. And then came Aiden. He was 17. The only son of a billionaire tech investor. Aiden had never missed a meal in his life. His sneakers cost more than Lena had ever seen. But beneath the privilege and the private school uniform, there was something different about Aiden, an invisible crack in the glass tower he lived in. He noticed things. He noticed Lena. He was on his way to a birthday dinner at a 5-star restaurant nearby, his dad's driver waiting just around the corner. But something made him stop. Their eyes met. She quickly looked away. Aiden hesitated. Then he walked over. "Hey," he said softly, holding a folded umbrella. "You okay?" Lena blinked. Was he serious? She looked away again and shrugged. "I'm fine." But she wasn't. "Are you hungry?" he asked. Silence. She hated feeling like a charity case. But her stomach growled before she could answer. Aiden smiled. "That's a yes." He knelt and opened his backpack. Out came a wrapped sandwich, a protein bar, and a bottle of water. He gently placed them on the ground beside her. "You can have these. I'm late for dinner anyway," he said, standing up. "Hope it's okay." Lena stared at the food like it was gold. She didn't even say thank you. But as Aiden turned and walked away, he felt her eyes on him the whole time. The next day, he came back. Same street. Same girl. Still wet. Still hungry. "Got anything warm?" she asked, eyes barely meeting his. Aiden smiled. "I thought you might say that." He handed her a sealed cup of hot soup and a dry hoodie, his own from the day before. "Why are you doing this?" Lena asked, the edge in her voice more defense than curiosity. Aiden looked at her and shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe because someone should." For the next 3 weeks, Aiden kept coming back. Sometimes with food. Sometimes with dry clothes. Sometimes just to talk. And little by little, Lena opened up. Her mom had died 3 years ago. Her dad had been abusive. She ran away. Slept in parks. Got kicked out of shelters. Dropped out of school. She trusted no one. But Aiden didn't ask for anything in return. He just listened. And one night, as they sat under a flickering street lamp, Lena said something that stopped him cold. "I wanted to be a doctor once," she whispered. "Crazy, huh?" Aiden shook his head. "No. Not crazy. Not at all." She looked up. "Yeah? How am I supposed to do that now?" Aiden didn't answer right away. But that night, something shifted inside him. He couldn't just walk away anymore. He had an idea. And it was bigger than soup or hoodies. He was going to change her life. Aiden couldn't sleep that night. The image of Lena sitting under that street lamp, her voice barely a whisper, "I wanted to be a doctor once," kept echoing in his head. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about how someone with so little could still carry a dream that big. How the world had thrown everything at her, yet somehow, she still had hope buried somewhere inside. He needed to help. The next morning, he skipped his first class, grabbed his laptop, and walked straight into his father's office. "I need your help," he said. His father looked up from behind his glass desk, brow raised. "Good morning to you too. I'm serious." Clearly. Aiden took a deep breath. "I met someone. A girl. She's homeless. But smart. Really smart. She wants to be a doctor." His father leaned back. And I want to help her. I need your resources, school placement, ID help, housing. Everything." There was a pause. Then a skeptical look. "She's a stranger. You've known her for what, a few weeks?" "I've known enough to know she's worth it." His father rubbed his chin. "Do you know how many kids are out there who need help?" "Yes," Aiden replied. "But I know this one." The room was quiet. Then, surprisingly, his father nodded. "Okay. Let's see what we can do." Aiden blinked. "Wait, really?" His dad smiled. "You care. That's rare enough in this world. Let's not waste it." By the weekend, Aiden had pulled together documents, reached out to contacts, and arranged a meeting with a school administrator from one of the city's best private schools. He returned to Lena's corner that afternoon with a folder under his arm and hope in his chest. "I found a way to get you back into school," he said. Lena looked at him like he'd grown another head. "You what?" "I talked to some people. There's a scholarship. And they're willing to meet you." She laughed bitterly. "That's insane." "Yeah," Aiden said. "Insanely awesome. I don't have an address. I don't even have an ID. We'll fix that. I haven't been in a classroom in 2 years. We'll catch up." She shook her head. "Why are you doing this?" Aiden didn't have a grand speech. He just said, "Because someone should have done it for you a long time ago." And for the first time, Lena didn't argue. Over the next few weeks, Aiden helped Lena file for a birth certificate, get temporary housing through a youth shelter, and attend tutoring sessions with one of his former teachers. The transition wasn't easy. The first time she sat in a classroom again, Lena felt like an imposter. Her clothes were borrowed. Her books were donated. Her hands trembled when she picked up the pen. But she didn't leave. And Aiden didn't let her fall. He met her every afternoon after school, helping her with biology flashcards and math problems. He even started bringing her old science textbooks and anatomy models from his dad's office. "Here," he said one day, handing her a plastic heart model. "Name all the chambers." She hesitated. Then, "Right atrium. Right ventricle. Left atrium. Left ventricle." Aiden grinned. "Told you you're smart." Lena studied harder than she'd ever thought possible. She stayed up nights reading. She asked questions in class. She even made a few friends, quiet kids like her, who didn't care where she came from. And day by day, the girl on the sidewalk became something else entirely. One day, Aiden showed up to their usual library meetup with a sealed envelope. "What's that?" she asked. He grinned. "Open it." Inside was a letter. Her hands shook as she read. "Summer Pre-Med Program, Columbia University, full scholarship." Lena looked up, eyes wide. This is real?" Aiden nodded. "Very real." She burst into tears. Right there in the library. And when she finally caught her breath, all she could say was, "Thank you." But Aiden shook his head. "No. You earned this." The summer program at Columbia was nothing like Lena had imagined. The campus was massive, filled with eager, competitive students who had spent years prepping for this opportunity. Most of them came from elite prep schools or wealthy families. Lena felt like a stranger in a foreign land. On the first day, she almost turned around and left. But she didn't. She remembered Aiden's words, "You earned this." So she squared her shoulders, walked into that lecture hall, and sat in the front row. Every day was a challenge. The coursework was intense: chemistry labs, anatomy lectures, patient simulations. But Lena absorbed it all. She studied until her eyes ached. She asked questions when no one else would. She stayed late in labs and came early for review sessions. Some of the other students dismissed her. One girl asked if she was part of the maintenance staff. Another said, "I didn't know Columbia gave charity spots." Lena just smiled. She was used to being underestimated. And she knew how to prove people wrong. By the end of the program, she had one of the highest GPAs in the cohort. Her professors took notice. One pulled her aside and said, "You're going to be a phenomenal doctor, Lena. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." It was the first time someone in a white coat had said those words to her. And it lit a fire. When the program ended, she returned to the city with a newfound sense of self. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was building something. Aiden met her at the train station with a bouquet of wildflowers and a grin. "How was it?" he asked. "Hard," she said, throwing her arms around him. "And amazing." He laughed. "That's kind of your whole story, isn't it?" They walked through Central Park, just talking, about cells, lab partners, awkward professors, and vending machine dinners. And somewhere between the turtles by the pond and the guy playing jazz on a saxophone, Aiden reached into his backpack and handed her a notebook. The cover was plain. The pages were blank. "For what?" she asked. "For the first page of the next chapter," he said. She smiled and tucked it into her bag. Senior year of high school flew by. Lena crushed the SATs. Her college application essay, detailing her journey from the streets to the science lab, made even the most jaded admissions officer pause. She applied to 12 schools. Got into 10. But her heart had already chosen Columbia. Aiden got into NYU's Stern School of Business. They weren't far apart, but the shift in routine was still hard. They no longer saw each other every day. Texts became their lifeline. Weekend coffee dates became sacred. Still, their bond held strong. One evening, Lena called Aiden crying. She had bombed her first organic chemistry exam. "I don't belong here," she sobbed. "Everyone's smarter. They know things I've never even heard of." Aiden stayed silent for a beat. Then, "Do you remember the girl on the sidewalk?" Lena sniffled. "Yeah." She didn't think she belonged either. "And now she's at Columbia, chasing her dream." "That girl? She's a fighter. And she deserves to be exactly where she is." Lena wiped her eyes. "You're really annoying sometimes." He chuckled. "You say that like it's new." By sophomore year, Lena had found her rhythm. She joined the pre-med society. Volunteered at a local clinic. Even led a tutoring group for underclassmen struggling in biology. Every time she helped someone, she saw a piece of herself in them, nervous, uncertain, quietly desperate for someone to believe in them. She gave them what she had once been given: time, patience, and hope. Her professors adored her. Her peers respected her. And through it all, she and Aiden grew closer. They didn't call it dating, not exactly. But they celebrated each other's wins. Held each other through the losses. Danced in the kitchen. Argued about nothing. And somehow, it all worked. One night, during winter break, they walked past the street where they'd first met. The brick wall was still there, though the corner looked cleaner now. Lena stopped. "It feels like a different life," she whispered. "It was a different life," Aiden said, reaching for her hand. "But it brought us here." They stood in silence, the city lights flickering around them. Then Lena said, I think I'm ready. For what? For everything. Lena's third year at Columbia was the toughest yet. She was knee-deep in advanced coursework, late-night study groups, early morning labs, and weekend volunteer shifts at the hospital. There were nights when she barely slept and mornings when she questioned every decision she had made. But quitting? That wasn't an option. Every time she felt herself slipping, she thought back to that first rainy afternoon, the street lamp, the sandwich, the boy who didn't walk past her. She kept a photo of that corner in her dorm room. A reminder of how far she'd come. Meanwhile, Aiden was thriving in business school. He had launched a non-profit startup focused on connecting at-risk youth with education resources. The concept gained traction fast. He was invited to speak at events, interviewed on podcasts, and even featured in a tech magazine. But his favorite success story was Lena. Whenever people asked him where he got his inspiration, he'd simply say, "I met someone who reminded me what people are capable of when they're seen." They still made time for each other. Coffee on Thursdays, walks on Sundays. Sometimes they met in the park with sandwiches and old textbooks, pretending to study but mostly laughing. One Sunday afternoon, Lena pulled out her notebook, the one he had given her after the summer program. "Still using that?" he asked with a smile. She flipped through the worn pages, filled with diagrams, quotes, journal entries, and messy thoughts scribbled at 3 a.m. "I call it my becoming book," she said. "Becoming what?" She looked at him, eyes shining. "Exactly who I was always meant to be." In her final year, Lena started clinical rotations. The first time she wore a white coat with her name stitched on the pocket, Lena Carter, medical student, she stared at her reflection for 10 minutes. It didn't feel real. But then she walked into her first patient's room. An elderly woman with a broken hip. Alone. Grumpy. Clearly in pain. Lena sat beside her, gently asked about her favorite books, her grandchildren, her garden. 15 minutes later, the woman was smiling through her pain. "You're not like the others," she whispered. "You see me." Lena blinked back tears. That's the point, she thought. At home, she and Aiden had finally moved in together. A small apartment not far from campus, full of second-hand furniture and mismatched mugs. It wasn't glamorous, but it was theirs. They built a rhythm, study nights with takeout, Sunday pancake mornings, impromptu dance breaks in the kitchen when stress got too loud. One night, Aiden came home to find Lena asleep at the table, textbooks open, highlighter in hand, glasses askew. He didn't wake her. Just placed a blanket over her shoulders and kissed the top of her head. She murmured, ventricle. He chuckled. Still dreaming in anatomy terms, huh? Even in exhaustion, she smiled. As residency applications approached, Lena felt the pressure mount. Internal medicine. Pediatrics. Emergency. She wasn't sure what direction to take. "I want to help people," she told Aiden one night. "But I want to help all of them. Every age. Every story." Aiden, flipping through her application draft, said, "Then maybe internal medicine is your path. It's broad. It's people-focused. It fits you." She looked at him. "You think so?" "I know so." And when the acceptance letter came, Columbia University Medical Center residency, internal medicine, they danced around the apartment like fools. It was happening. She was really becoming a doctor. A week before graduation, Lena stood in her white coat in front of a mirror again. This time, her name wasn't just stitched on her pocket, it was engraved in her identity. She wasn't pretending anymore. She was living it. She and Aiden returned to the street corner one last time before the ceremony. The building was different now, a boutique coffee shop replaced the old convenience store. But the wall? It was still there. She placed her palm against the bricks, closed her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "For not giving up on me." Aiden slid his hand into hers. "You never needed saving," he said. "Just someone to remind you how strong you already were." Graduation day arrived with clear skies and the kind of warmth that makes you believe the universe is paying attention. The auditorium buzzed with families, professors, and students in white coats, all gathered to witness a moment that had taken years of sacrifice to earn. Lena sat in the front row, hands folded in her lap, heart pounding. They called her name. Lena Carter. She walked across the stage to a standing ovation from her department. Her professors. Her classmates. And somewhere in the audience, Aiden stood, clapping with tears in his eyes. She received her diploma, took her ceremonial oath, and when she turned to face the crowd, she saw him. Mouthing the words, "You did it." "No, we did it," she thought. After the ceremony, they walked together through campus, still in their gowns, still half in disbelief. Aiden held her hand tightly. "Dr. Lena Carter," he said dramatically. "You've got a nice ring to it." She laughed. "Not as nice as this," she replied, and pulled a small note from her pocket. He unfolded it. Inside, "Let's write the next chapter." Residency started fast. There were no breaks, no grace periods, no soft starts. Lena was thrown into 16-hour shifts, back-to-back patients, endless charting, and emotional whiplash. But she was ready. Each time she walked into a room, she brought more than clinical knowledge. She brought empathy. She remembered what it felt like to be invisible. And she refused to let her patients feel that way. Her supervisors noticed. "You have something rare," one attending said. "You connect. Not just treat." She smiled politely. But inside, she thought, "I earned that the hard way." Back at home, life with Aiden was changing too. He'd stepped back from his startup, handing it off to a new CEO. He wanted to focus on something different, something closer to the work Lena was doing. "I'm thinking of starting a foundation," he said one night. "Not just tech. Real support for kids like you used to be." Lena paused mid-bite. "Like scholarships?" "More. Housing. Counseling. Education. Mentorship. All of it." She blinked. "That's huge." He grinned. "So were you." They spent nights building it together, drawing on her experience, his resources, their combined vision. They called it Second Chance Med. One afternoon, a social worker from the hospital approached Lena. "There's a girl downstairs. 15. She won't talk to anyone. No ID. No belongings. Might be on the run." Lena's heart dropped. She walked to the ER holding room and found a small girl curled in a plastic chair, knees tucked under her chin, eyes wide with fear. Lena knelt beside her. "Hey. I'm Lena." The girl didn't respond. "That's okay," Lena said. "You don't have to talk." She placed a granola bar and a bottle of water on the table beside her. "I just wanted you to know, I see you." The girl looked at her. Just for a second. And in that moment, Lena saw herself. Weeks later, the girl, her name was Maya, was placed into a youth housing program partnered with Second Chance Med. Lena met with her weekly. Tutored her. Encouraged her. And slowly, Maya began to trust. "You think I could be a nurse?" she asked one day. Lena smiled. "I think you could be anything." On their 5-year anniversary, Aiden surprised Lena with a visit to the old street corner. It had been redeveloped. A mural now covered the brick wall, a painting of a young girl holding an umbrella, surrounded by books, light beaming from her chest. Beneath it, a plaque. For those who were seen, and those still waiting to be. Lena stood frozen, hand over her mouth. Aiden stepped beside her. They unveiled it this morning. I wanted you to see it first. She turned to him, eyes brimming. You did this? We did this, he corrected. She hugged him tightly, overwhelmed with memory, meaning, and love. And when she pulled back, he was already kneeling. I knew from the moment you told me you wanted to be a doctor, he said, that I wanted to spend the rest of my life watching you become exactly that. He opened a small box. Inside, no diamonds, no extravagance. Just a silver band, etched with the words, seen. Chosen. Loved. Lena couldn't speak. She nodded through her tears. Yes. The wedding was nothing like the ones in magazines or movies. There were no ice sculptures or fireworks. No five-tiered cake or celebrity band. But it was perfect. The ceremony took place in the hospital's rooftop garden at sunset, surrounded by friends, family, professors, old clinic volunteers, and even a few of Lena's former patients. Aiden wore a simple navy suit with the same worn-in shoes he had worn the day they first met. Lena wore a cream-colored dress with pockets, because she was still practical, still herself. They wrote their own vows. I saw you before you saw yourself, Aiden said, his voice trembling. But now you see everyone. And the world is better for it. Lena laughed through her tears. You didn't save me. You showed me that I could save myself. And now, I want to spend the rest of my life doing that for others, with you by my side. When they kissed, the crowd erupted into applause. And for a brief moment, the past, present, and future all stood in the same place. Married life didn't change them. They still had messy mornings and late-night takeout. They still disagreed about which way the toilet paper roll should face. They still laughed over old memes and danced barefoot in the kitchen when their favorite song came on. But there was a deeper peace now. A sense of home. A sense that no matter what the world threw their way, they would meet it together. Lena continued her residency, climbing steadily toward her goal of becoming an attending physician. She was now mentoring junior residents, most of whom didn't know her full story. But every once in a while, she shared bits and pieces. Especially when she saw someone struggling. Medicine is hard, she told one overwhelmed intern. But so is being human. Just remember, they're not charts, they're people. Treat both. The intern nodded, wiping his eyes. Thank you, Dr. Carter. She smiled. You'll be fine. I've been where you are. He didn't realize she meant that in more ways than one. Meanwhile, Aiden's foundation, Second Chance Med, had exploded into a national movement. Chapters opened in more than 20 cities. Their programs help thousands of youth every year, offering everything from free counseling and medical prep to scholarships and housing aid. They hired Lena as a board advisor. She offered medical insight. But more importantly, she offered perspective. This isn't about rescue, she told the board. It's about access. Give them the tools, and they'll build their own ladder. Then came a new chapter. Lena found out she was pregnant. She stood in the bathroom staring at the test, hand over her mouth, heart racing. When she told Aiden, he froze for a second, then broke into the biggest, dorkiest grin she'd ever seen. We're gonna be parents? She nodded. And just like that, their world expanded again. Pregnancy didn't slow Lena down much. She kept working until her third trimester, balancing checkups with chart reviews and rounds with nursery planning. Aiden painted the baby's room himself, twice, because the first color made the room feel too cold. They didn't care whether it was a boy or girl. They cared that this child would grow up knowing love, purpose, and the importance of kindness. Their daughter was born on a rainy morning, just like the one when Lena had been found on the street. As she held her baby girl for the first time, Lena whispered, you're already more loved than I ever thought possible." They named her Isla, a name that meant island, a nod to finding peace after the storm. Aiden cried when he held her. Not because he was overwhelmed, but because he had never seen something so perfect come from something so broken, and be whole. That first night at home, they sat together on the couch, Isla asleep between them. "I'm scared," Lena admitted. "What if I mess up?" Aiden took her hand. "We'll figure it out." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "This isn't where I thought I'd be," she said. "Me neither. But I'm so glad it's where we are." He kissed her forehead. "Me too, Dr. Carter." "Me too." As Isla grew, so did the world Lena and Aiden had built. Their apartment, once cozy and cluttered, evolved into a home filled with children's books, scribbled crayon drawings taped to the fridge, and the sweet chaos of toddlerhood. Isla had her mother's fierce curiosity and her father's quiet confidence. By the age of 4, she was already asking questions like, "Why do hearts beat?" and "Can I be a doctor and a dinosaur?" Lena would laugh. "You can be anything." And Aiden would add, "Especially both." Despite the demands of parenting and their careers, Lena and Aiden made time to return, once a year, to the place where it all began. The street corner. The brick wall was now partially covered by ivy. The boutique coffee shop still stood where the old convenience store once had been. But the energy of the place, the quiet memory of something important, was still there. They would stand in silence, holding hands, remembering. Sometimes Lena would whisper to herself, "I was seen here. I was saved here." And every time, Aiden would correct her gently, "No. You saved yourself. I just made sure you didn't do it alone." Lena's medical career advanced quickly. She became an attending physician at the very hospital where she'd once volunteered as a pre-med student. Her colleagues respected her, not just for her knowledge, but for her unwavering empathy. Patients requested her by name. Nurses trusted her instinct. Medical students followed her like shadows. But Lena didn't let the title get to her head. She still brought an extra granola bar in her coat pocket, just in case. She still made eye contact with the janitor. Still remembered birthdays. Still sat beside patients instead of standing over them. And she still saw herself in every lost, scared, overwhelmed person who walked through the ER doors. Meanwhile, Second Chance Med had grown beyond anyone's imagination. It wasn't just a non-profit anymore, it was a movement. With chapters in over 50 cities, a mobile app, partnerships with medical schools, and a youth mentoring network that connected thousands across the country. Aiden, now CEO of the foundation, often credited its success to one key principle: seeing the invisible. That phrase became their motto. It was printed on billboards, posters, even coffee mugs. And beneath every logo were 3 simple words. Inspired by Lena. One day, Lena was asked to give the keynote address at a national medical conference. She stood on stage in front of thousands of physicians, researchers, educators, and students. On the screen behind her were images from her life, some known, some private. A grainy photo of a wet hoodie. A blurry street lamp. Her first ID badge. Her white coat ceremony. And then, her daughter, Isla, wearing a toy stethoscope and grinning with all her baby teeth. The audience went silent as Lena began to speak. "I wasn't supposed to be here," she said plainly. "At least, not according to statistics. I was homeless at 15. Hungry. Angry. Invisible. I didn't trust anyone. I didn't think I was worth saving." She paused. But someone stopped. Not to fix me. Not to rescue me. Just to see me. Her voice cracked, just slightly. And that changed everything. She told her story. Not for sympathy. But for truth. She talked about the moments no one saw. The fear. The shame. The quiet decision to try one more time. And then she talked about choosing to stay. Choosing to study. Choosing to care. She ended with one sentence that echoed long after she left the stage. You never know whose future you're holding in your hands when you choose to stop and see. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes. That night, back in their hotel room, Aiden handed Lena a glass of water and said, "I've never been more proud of you." She sat on the edge of the bed, shoes kicked off, hair falling loose. "I still feel like that girl sometimes," she said. Afraid. Small. He knelt in front of her, gently took her hands. "You're not that girl anymore," he said. "But she's the reason you're here. Don't ever forget her." Lena nodded. She wouldn't. Not ever. Isla was 10 years old when she first asked the question. "Mom, why did that mural have your name on it?" They were walking through a park near the hospital, passing by the community wall that had become a symbol of transformation. Painted there, in brilliant color, was the image of a young girl standing in the rain, holding a sandwich and looking up at a boy with an umbrella. Underneath, a plaque read, "Dedicated to Dr. Lena Carter, whose journey reminded us that a moment of kindness can change a lifetime." Lena smiled at her daughter, who now had her father's calm gaze and her mother's sharp wit. "Because a long time ago," she said, "someone helped me when I really needed it." "Like a doctor?" "No, not like a doctor," Lena replied. "Just a person who cared." Isla thought for a moment. "Is that why you always talk to everyone, even the grumpy patients?" Lena laughed. "Especially the grumpy ones." Time moved quickly after that. Isla grew. So did the foundation. Lena began teaching part-time at Columbia, mentoring young medical students who felt like they didn't belong. Some were first-generation college students. Others were refugees. Some were once homeless themselves. To each of them, she said the same thing. "You're not here by accident. You're here because you belong. And you are enough." They believed her, because she had lived it. One summer, a young intern named Maya, yes, the same Maya she'd helped years ago, knocked on Lena's office door with a trembling hand and tears in her eyes. "I don't think I can do this," she whispered. Lena stood, walked over, and handed her a folded hoodie. Maya blinked. "What's this?" "My old one," Lena said. "I wore it when I thought the same thing." Maya burst into tears. And in that small gesture, Lena knew the story had come full circle. Aiden surprised her again on their 20th wedding anniversary. They were supposed to have a quiet dinner, but instead, he led her into a packed auditorium filled with friends, colleagues, students, patients, and even people she didn't recognize. At the front of the stage, a banner that read, "Thank you, Dr. Carter." The mayor presented her with a community medal. Her medical school awarded her an honorary doctorate. And Second Chance Med unveiled a new scholarship fund in her name, dedicated specifically to helping homeless teens enter healthcare fields. Lena was speechless. When asked to speak, she simply said, "Everything I've done is the result of one person deciding not to walk past me. If that doesn't show how powerful you are, how powerful we all are, then I don't know what does." Later that night, on their balcony, watching the skyline glow, Aiden asked her a question he'd asked before. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't stopped that day?" She looked at him and smiled. "No. I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't said yes." He raised an eyebrow. "Yes to what?" "To hope," she said softly. "To one more chance." Years later, after retirement, Lena published a memoir titled Seen. It became a bestseller, not because of celebrity or scandal, but because it spoke to something deep and true in people. The idea that sometimes, what saves us isn't a miracle, it's a moment. One look. One question. One sandwich. One umbrella. At the very end of the book, she wrote. If you're reading this and you feel unseen, know that I see you. You matter. And maybe one day, someone will stop for you, too. But until then, please, don't give up. The final chapter closed not with an ending, but with a beginning. Because her story had become thousands of others. And the girl on the sidewalk? She had become a doctor, a mentor, a wife, a mother, a lighthouse. A light for others to follow home.